Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. My name is ZWO. I'm an astrophotographer, and in this video I'm going to compare three of the most affordable smart telescopes on the market today, which are the ZWO Seestar S30, its bigger brother, the Seestar S50, and the Dwarf Labs Dwarf 3 Smart Telescope. The Seestar S30 is the most affordable at $399, while the Seestar S50 and Dwarf 3 are closer to $500. Keep in mind that these prices don't include potential tariffs or import taxes, so be sure to check the video description for links to reliable vendors where you can find the exact pricing, availability, and delivery time. We'll put these smart telescopes to the test by observing the sun, the moon, and deep sky objects, and talk about the technical specifications to determine which of these telescopes best fits your needs. Smart telescopes are changing the way beginners can explore the night sky. Unlike traditional telescopes, they come with built-in cameras and are wirelessly controlled through user-friendly apps on your smartphone or tablet. This means no complicated setup, just power on the telescope, connect via the app, choose an object and watch as the telescope automatically slews to the object in the night sky and automatically starts taking live images of that object that will appear on your smart device. Smart telescopes avoid the steep learning curve of traditional astrophotography, and they come in compact, portable designs. When you buy the Seestar S30 or S50, you'll get the telescope with a tripod, a solar filter, a USB-C cable, and a sturdy case. The Dwarf 3 comes with the telescope, a solar filter, a USB-C charging cable, and a carrying bag, but no tripod, which is offered as an optional extra. Alternatively, you can use any regular photo tripod for your Dwarf 3. Let's break down the key technical differences between the Seestar S30, S50 and the Dwarf 3 smart telescopes first. The Seestar S30 and S50 are triplet refractor telescopes, while the Dwarf 3 has a telephoto lens. All three telescopes have extra low dispersion glass and are apochromatic, which promises sharp and color-accurate images of the night sky. Aperture determines how much light a telescope collects. The S50 has the largest 50mm aperture, followed by the Dwarf 3 at 35mm and the S30 at 30mm. A larger aperture means better resolution. Think of it like using a bigger bucket to catch more rain, but in this case you are catching more photons. The Seestar S30 and the Dwarf 3 have an additional wide-field lens to help you visually locate objects in the sky like the sun or the moon. The lenses can also be used to take daytime and nighttime photos and videos. The S50 has a 250mm focal length, while the Dwarf 3 and S30 both have 150mm. Focal length works like a zoom. At 150mm, you get a wider view, whereas at 250mm, you're zoomed in and get a closer look at celestial objects. The field of view determines how much of the night sky fits into the frame of your photo or video. The Seestar S50 has the smallest field of view at 0.7 times 1.3 degrees of the night sky, which is just enough to fit the full moon. The Seestar S30 offers a 1.2 by 2.13 degree view, which would fit about 2 moons. The Dwarf 3 has the widest field of view at 2.9 times 1.7 degrees, fitting the moon about 6 times over. Importantly, thanks to software updates, each of these telescopes are now capable of a mosaic mode, which stitches multiple images and can double the original field of view. We'll explore the pros and cons of this feature later in the video. All three telescopes support JPEG, FITS and TIFF files and MP4 video. However, the Seestar models go a step further with their AVI RAW video, which is a great feature for those who want to get into advanced processing of the sun and the moon. I'll demonstrate this in a minute. Both the Seestar and Dwarf 3 telescopes are controlled via their respective mobile apps available for Android and iOS. These apps are beginner-friendly and very easy to navigate. While the Dwarf Lab app initially had some issues, it has improved significantly over the years, and at this point I'd say that it is easy for any beginner to learn how to use both apps. Alright, I'll get back to more technical specifications later in the video. But let's take a look at how each of these affordable smart telescopes perform in the real world. Using a smart telescope is quite straightforward. Start by placing the telescope on a tripod and ensure the tripod is level. Then, download the Seestar or Dwarf Lab app from the App Store on your smartphone or tablet, and once installed, power on the smart telescope, which will generate a unique Wi-Fi signal. Simply switch the Wi-Fi signal of your smart device to this Wi-Fi network and open the app. When you connect to a smart telescope for the first time, you have to complete a setup procedure. For a detailed walkthrough, check out my in-depth reviews for each telescope linked in the video description below. Alright, let's take a look at how the Seestar and Dwarf 3 smart telescopes perform when imaging the sun. When you open up the Seestar app, you'll see a home screen with three main options: stargazing for deep sky imaging, solar system for the sun, moon and the planets, and scenery for daytime photos, videos and time lapses. In comparison, the Dwarf 3 is a bit more hands-on. It has a main screen and a photo button, and as soon as you press it, you will see a live view of the Dwarf 3 right on your smart device. Let me remind you, never look directly into the sun and always place a solar filter in front of the telescope lens. The Dwarf 3 and the Seestar S30 have magnetic solar filters, making them super easy to attach. The Seestar S50 solar filter isn't magnetized, so it takes a little more effort to position it, and just be careful to avoid too much friction when placing it in front of the lens. The Dwarf 3 and Seestar S30 feature a wide field lens to help you locate the sun before switching to the telescope view. The Seestar S50 lacks this and relies on automatic slewing, which isn't always accurate. If needed, you can manually use the slew buttons in the app to find the sun or retry the go-to process. Once the sun is centered, all three telescopes offer automatic tracking, so you can simply enable it and they'll keep the sun in view throughout your viewing session. All three telescopes offer autofocus and allow you to adjust exposure and gain settings to your preference, though the default settings are already quite good. Now let's compare the live views of the sun. Here are MP4 videos I captured through each telescope on the same day. As you can see, the Dwarf 3 records photos and videos of the sun in a natural white, whereas the Seestar telescopes show the sun in an orange tint. Next, here are three unedited JPEG photos of the sun. When comparing them, I do think the Seestar S50 has a slight edge over the S30 and Dwarf 3 thanks to its larger aperture, which brings out a bit more detail in the sunspots. You can also create stacked images of the sun using all three telescopes. With the Seestar telescopes, you can record a high-quality AVI RAW video for up to 10 minutes and then stack the frames using free software like AutoStacker. The Dwarf 3 also has an in-app stacking option through the built-in Astro mode, which lets you live stack the images directly in the app. If I'm honest, I do like the AVI RAW option of the Seestar telescopes a little bit better because it allows me to capture more frames per second, which I can use in post-processing. So, let me show you the three stacked images of the sun with some processing from my side to the best of my ability after stacking about 500 individual frames for each of the photos. Again, I do think the Seestar S50 has a slight edge and shows a bit more detail than the other two. Let me know if you agree. Alright, let's move on to the moon. Imaging the moon basically works the same as imaging the sun, but without the need for a solar filter. I pointed all of the telescopes at the same moon during the same night, and here are the three live videos. Again, I think that the Seestar S50 shows a tiny bit more detail. Here are the three individual JPEG files. And here's the processed stacked image of the moon for all of the telescopes. Again, I do think that the Seestar S50 has a slight edge over the Dwarf 3 and the Seestar S30 due to its larger aperture. Let me know if you agree in the comments, and let's move on to observing the rest of the universe. Each telescope has 3 built-in filters: an IR UV cut filter for normal day and nighttime imaging, a dual band filter which enhances the HA and O3 light emissions from emission nebulae while blocking out light pollution, and the Dwarf 3 has an astrofilter for near-infrared imaging, while the Seestar S30 and S50 have a dark filter for noise reduction. Both apps offer multiple ways to engage in deep sky astrophotography. The Dwarf Lab app features a virtual sky atlas allowing users to explore celestial objects. By clicking on the search icon, you can access a list of recommended targets, including the Sun, Moon, planets, nebulae, galaxies, and star clusters. Just a simple tap on the photo icon and the Dwarf 3 will salute to the object you're interested in. Additionally, the Dwarf Lab app provides a scheduling tool that enables you to plan and automate your imaging session by selecting specific objects to capture at designated times and locations. Similarly, the Seestar app offers various categories under stargazing, such as tonight's best, galaxies, nebulae, star clusters, planets, and even recent comets. Like the Dwarf Lab app, it also includes a virtual sky atlas and a planning feature to automate your imaging experience throughout the night. One key difference between the telescopes used to be the Dwarf 3's ability to polar align to the celestial pole by using its EQ mode. This feature improves tracking accuracy, allowing for exposure times for up to 2 minutes. Longer exposures help accumulate more photons on the camera sensor, revealing fainter details and improving the signal-to-noise ratio for better image quality. While setting up the Dwarf 3 in EQ mode requires some additional effort, the benefits are well worth it. EQ mode is optional, so if you choose to skip it, your exposure time will likely be limited to about 10 to 15 seconds before star trails will become noticeable due to tracking inaccuracies. That's why the Seestar telescopes default to 10-second exposures. They aren't polar aligned. The big advantage is that you can simply set them down and start your imaging session right away without any extra effort. Now, of course, Seestar is an innovative company and has been working on updating its firmware to include EQ mode. And just this week, just after I finished this review, I received a firmware update that does appear to include a brand new EQ mode option. Since this feature is so new, I will be testing it in a future video, so stay tuned. Both apps also include a framing or mosaic feature, enabling you to expand your field of view by up to 2 times its original size. This is particularly beneficial for the Seestar S50, which has the narrowest field of view. However, using the mosaic feature requires additional capturing time, since the camera must photograph different sections of the night sky and stitch them together. In contrast, the Dwarf 3, with its wider field of view, can capture larger objects more quickly without needing to create a mosaic. Additionally, all telescopes incorporate AI noise reduction to produce cleaner images of the night sky. It is important to note that AI in these smart telescopes doesn't relate to any virtual or preloaded images. They capture real-time photos of the night sky, including planes, clouds, and satellite trails. The capturing process is similar across telescopes. Both the Dwarf 3 and the Seestar telescopes salute to the selected object, calibrate, and then begin stacking images to improve detail and clarity of the object you are viewing. I typically spend about 1 to 1.5 hours imaging each object before moving on to another object, which gives me decent results. The Dwarf 3 asks you to capture separate dark frames to reduce noise before starting a deep sky capturing session, which you can do by following the instructions. The Seestar telescopes have a built-in dark filter and do this automatically, which streamlines the whole process. Now, let's take a look at the original stacked images and my processed versions captured with these 3 smart telescopes. Each photo is a stack of about 1 hour and 30 minutes of exposure time, And with the Dwarf 3 in EQ mode, I took 30 to 60 second exposures, while the Seestar S50 and S30 were limited to their default 10 second exposures. Starting with the Orion Nebula, the Dwarf 3's longer exposures helped reveal more of the faint surrounding nebulosity. The Seestar S50's larger aperture gave sharp core details, but I needed to use mosaic mode to capture the whole nebula, which reduced exposure time per section. The Seestar S30 offered a balanced field of view and detail at a lower price. For the Andromeda Galaxy, the Dwarf 3's wider field of view is a major advantage, capturing more of the galaxy structure in a single frame at a longer exposure time, which revealed the faint nebulosity at the edges of the galaxy. The Seestar S50 and S30 have a narrower field of view, so I needed to use framing mode. Especially the S50 produced a sharper core of the galaxy as compared to the other telescopes, while the Seestar S30 also offered a well-balanced image. With the Pleiades, one key difference stands out. Seestar S50's larger aperture appears to handle the bright stars and blue nebulosity a bit better than the Dwarf 3 and the S30. The S50 produces tighter, more natural-looking stars, while the Dwarf 3 and the S30 stars appear slightly more blurry and bloated. All of these photos were taken under Bortle 7 city light-polluted skies, so if you're imaging from a darker location, you can likely achieve even better results. None of these budget smart telescopes are well suited for capturing detailed views of the planets. They typically show planets as small dots in the night sky, and in Jupiter's case, you will also see its Galilean moons. To observe surface details, a focal length of around 2000 mm is required, which is best achieved with larger aperture mirror-based telescopes. The most affordable option for this is a Dobsonian, though Schmidt-Cassegrain and Maxitov telescopes are also excellent choices. I've covered this topic in more detail in one of my blog posts, which I'll link to in the video description below. Let's discuss some extra features. The Seestar S30 and S50 come with 64 GB of internal storage, while the Dwarf 3 offers 128 GB. In terms of battery life, the Seestar models last around 6 hours per charge, whereas the Dwarf 3 extends to 8 hours. All three can be recharged via a USB-C cable while in use, allowing continuous operation throughout the night. A USB-C cable can also be used to transfer images to a laptop or PC for further processing. The Dwarf 3 is the lightest of the bunch at 1.3 kg, followed by the Seestar S30 at 1.7 kg and the S50 at 3 kg. With all models under 26 cm in size, they are very easy to carry around. The Dwarf 3 and Seestar telescopes can connect to your home Wi-Fi network, letting you control them remotely from the comforts of your home, which is perfect for those freezing nights. Another great feature is the ability to share your view with others. Folks can download the app and log in as guests to enjoy the view by up to 2 on the Dwarf and up to 8 persons on the Seestar telescopes. This makes them great telescopes for outreach and group stargazing. So here are my final thoughts. If I had to choose between one of these three telescopes, it would be tough. Each has its strengths. If you want a versatile, smart telescope that's also great for daytime use, the Dwarf 3 stands out. It offers features like daytime tracking, time-lapses, burst mode, and adjustable camera settings, plus the ability to switch quickly between the wide field and telephoto lens, which makes it perfect for wildlife photography. The Seestar S30 can also do some of that, but is a little bit more limited, and both the S30 and S50 have a portrait mode camera sensor, which is great for social media, but perhaps not ideal for capturing daytime photos, unless you like your smartphone portrait pics more than landscape photos. For stargazing and astrophotography, the Seestar S30 is the most affordable choice, and with the latest EQ mode update, it can now track the night sky more accurately and take longer exposure photos, just like the Dwarf 3. The Dwarf 3 has the widest field of view in this comparison and has EQ mode, making it great for capturing larger and dimmer objects, but its focal length is shorter than the Seestar S50. The S50 excels at higher resolution views of the sun and the moon with its larger 50mm aperture and 250mm focal length. However, its narrow field of view and the older camera sensor may limit its versatility even when 2x framing mode is used. Ultimately, it comes down to your own preferences and what fits your needs. Each telescope has its pros and cons, and availability or pricing in your area could also influence your decision. I just hope this comparison helps you make an informed choice. Clear skies, subscribe if you like the video, and see you in the next one.